Kevina's troubles in Big China. A few years ago, I was an English teacher in Beijing, China, working for a well-known mid-tier English school. The requirements to actually be an English teacher at most of these places are actually pretty low. Most mid-range places are looking for people that have these three traits: native English speaker, the ability to get a work visa, mostly this means having a college degree and no criminal record, 3. At least a low to moderate level of basic functionality. You get a wide variety of people signing up for and getting jobs like this because of these standards. And I've got stories for days about the people I met and worked with. Today's are about the Kevinas who didn't quite understand the whole China aspect. Now, before I begin, I should make one thing very clear. Nobody expects every teacher who plans to only live there for 1 year to fully understand the country, its culture, and its history on day one. I knew plenty of people who hardly learned anything about those points by the end of their time there. However, I think it's fair to expect people to come in with at least some understanding of a few things. But then there are people like Kevinas who have absolutely no idea where they are. Story 1. Nothing ever happened at Tiananmen Square or in Chinese history. This company grouped teachers who would be starting at the same time together, brought them in on flights that arrived on the same few days, put us up in the same hotel for a while, trained us together, and took us on a few outings as a group. Some of these outings were work-related, but others were for fun. The most memorable of these was when we went to see Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City. We went early in the day as there is a lot to see there. However, getting to a place extremely early doesn't keep the line to get into the square from being exceptionally long because, China. This is made worse by the need to get past security to get in. It's all pretty standard really, a metal detector, x-ray of your bag, maybe a glance at your ID if I recall. On the coach ride back to the hotel, we were all discussing how much fun we had. Kevina took this chance to raise a question. Why was there so much security to get in? It's just a plaza, it doesn't make a lot of sense. The other dozen or so of us went silent at this. She didn't know why they might be a little paranoid about who gets into Tiananmen Square. We knew we couldn't tell her because even in the next few days that we would gotten to know her, we knew that she would probably start telling random people on the street about the massacre and how it was kept secret from them if she ever found out about it. One fellow offered a lame, well, it is next door to the Congress building, maybe it's related to that, in an attempt to kill the deafening silence. She bought it, and we all went back to discussing the day. Though the rest of us felt a slight unease about how much effort we would have to put in to keep her in the dark. Now, as I said, I don't think you have to have a degree in modern history to work there or anything, but this was merely the start of ways that Kevina didn't quite grasp where she was. Shortly after this outing, I went back to Tiananmen myself to go into the tomb of Mao Zedong. My absence from breakfast was noticed. When I explained where I was, Kevina asked, "Who's Mao?" Mao is the guy on every single banknote and more than a few posters and billboards, which you have seen 1,000 times this week alone. The tour guide from the outing we just took had explained who he was too. Drugs are very illegal in China, though they aren't that hard to find if you know a guy. If you're caught with them, you will probably earn a one-way ticket out of the country the next day and might have trouble getting back in for a while. Testing positive for them is just as bad. Even an accusation that you have weed at your place can earn you a severe sit-down at work. This didn't stop Kevina from inviting friends over to her home to smoke and hotbox her room. When her roommates, who would also likely get in endless trouble over this, brought this up, she refused to believe that the Chinese government would actually punish her for anything. Despite it coming up numerous times, she never fully understood why a police state might have so many military police officers hanging around. She also never quite got why Facebook, YouTube, Google, and Chinese language Wikipedia were censored. Story 2. The Temple of the Llamas. Just a little north and east of Tiananmen is a Tibetan Buddhist temple known as Lama Temple in English. It's a beautiful place that everybody ought to visit. I'm sure that most people reading this can put two and two together and figure out why a llama is in the context of the temple. But a Kevina has got to Kevina. Somebody put pictures on social media for the outing to the temple, including spelling the name of the temple out several times, prompting this gem of a reply. Kevina, you mean like llamas? Pay no attention to the difference in spellings. Pay no attention to the llama being a South American animal and our being in China. Kevina was now convinced that there was a magical temple dedicated to those cute furry camels in the center of Beijing. Another teacher I knew informed me that she was somewhat disappointed when she went and learned that it was dedicated to boring old Buddhist monks. Not a single llama to be found. Story 3. Intercultural miscommunication. Kevina grabs that the waitstaff at most restaurants didn't speak much English, if any, but she didn't know what to do with this information. The last time I was out in a group with her, she took offense to somebody else's meal coming with the wrong side dish. While the actual owner of the meal was pretty okay with this, Kevina saw this as the crime against humanity that it was. Over the objections of the guy who was actively trying to eat his meal, Kevina summoned the server. As you've probably guessed by now, Kevina didn't speak a word of Chinese. While this might cause most people to pause before they summon a person who doesn't speak English over to discuss a problem, she is not most people. She started frantically gesturing to the offending side dish while shouting, "No, no, no, no," before pointing at her dish, the same as what was initially ordered, and shouting, "Yes, yes, yes," just loudly enough to draw attention to our table from everybody else in the restaurant. You could see the tidal wave of embarrassment rolling over the rest of us. The server, watching this wide-eyed and probably wondering what kind of demonic possession would cause a person to act like this, summoned the manager. This fellow did speak some English and got to participate in a freeway debate over if they should or should not bring the fellow who had gotten rice instead of fries a free large order of fries. Eventually, both he and the allegedly offended bloke who ordered the fries gave up to get her to stop. I was told that she was rather proud of how that turned out when it came up again later. This sort of thing happened all the time according to my sources. One event I saw video evidence of involved her shouting over the phone to the staff of a local McDonald's who were taking too long with the delivery. At one point, she just kept repeating the name of the street she was on in an increasingly exasperated tone. As I speak Chinese, I can assure you that the voices coming out of the phone were all expressing their extreme confusion. However, the most facepalm worthy of these events was during our training. During one session, which was not limited to our intake group, she came to know a couple of teachers who were actually from China. Upon seeing both of these women, who didn't resemble each other much at all, stand side by side, she asked very sincerely, "You all two sisters?" She was surprised to find out that they were not. This isn't everything that happened that would fit in this story, but I think it paints most of the picture. She's definitely in the top 3 Kevinas I've ever known. 2 Kevins and a kid. Let me start with this. My backyard neighbors are genuinely nice people. They have never been purposely cruel, neglectful, or even vaguely mean. They are unfortunately the dumbest people I've ever met in person. And they have reproduced. Kevin and Kevina have a child who, despite her circumstances, is completely normal. I met them a few days after I moved in, meeting Kevin when we were both out to check the mail, where he told me right off the bat that his daughter was an oops baby because we thought the pool rule counted for hot tubs too. It took some back and forth, but I finally figured out that they thought that since you can't get pregnant having sex in a swimming pool, in case anyone was wondering, that's not a thing, and a hot tub is a small pool, they can have sex in a hot tub with 0 risk of pregnancies. And so, my life living next to Kevin's family began. I learned very quickly that everyone on the block has a copy of the Kevin's house keys. Everyone. Because Kevin doesn't carry keys with him. He leaves his car keys in his car, so he doesn't lose them, but he doesn't like the feeling of keys in his pockets, so he goes without. Kevina has keys, but she can't keep them for more than a month or 2. I have no idea where they go, but every now and then she asks for my copy of her house key so she can go make a copy for herself. In doing so, she has lost my copy of her key 4 times. Their child Rachel can't keep a hold of her key because by her own admission she never gives it to her parents and hides it when her parents lose theirs. Rachel is a saint. She comes by my house when she needs help with math or when her parents set the kitchen on fire. This is not a hyperbole. I have lived here 2 years and the fire department has come 5 times. A lot of the time they just seem to forget they were cooking. Not in a, oh, I forgot about spaghetti way, but a, I have no idea how that spaghetti got into a pot filled with water and sat on the stove way. CPS has come by because, oh my god, but nothing seems to have come of it. The worst fire was not a kitchen fire though. Kevin wanted to clear out the propane tank for their grill. So he opened up the valve and shoved a match in or near it. The ambulance was involved. Rachel's grandmother came to stay for a week or so. The grandmother was perfectly normal, but very forthright about her son's inability to exist safely in this world. That's all I know about that one unfortunately, but they're planning a cookout for Labor Day and I'm invited. Wish me luck.